Be covering all that as it happens, the details and the arguments. But it is worth taking a step back to look at the whole picture here, because we are really in the third act of a three-act drama, one that started when Donald Trump first ran for president in 2016. He won the Electoral College, he won the presidency, while losing the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes. And in that election, he was the beneficiary of not one, but two criminal conspiracies to tilt the playing field in his favor. The first, directed by Trump himself, according to court documents and his then-fixer Michael Cohen, the conspiracy to pay hush money to a porn star to hide his extramarital affair from the public right before the election. The second conspiracy, Russian interference in the election in his favor. The degree to which he was enmeshed in remains to this day somewhat unclear, but he certainly, beyond dispute, welcomed and solicited. Soon after the 2016 election, Democrats and Republicans, the House and the Senate and the Justice Department set about investigating that Russian interference, in part to get to the bottom of what happened. But it all underlined the fundamental point of issue here, which is that Donald Trump is just not a person who believes in free and fair elections. To his core, Donald Trump is a cheater and believes in cheating. And it's one thing to cheat at golf and marriage, as we know he does, but it's another thing altogether to cheat at democracy. Because cheating at democracy means destroying democracy. And Donald Trump is a person who manifestly cheats and wants to cheat. That was the core of the story of the Russian interference that he and his campaign and his son welcomed and exploited. The results of the 2016 election, which again were very narrow, 70,000 votes tipping across 3 states, you have a different outcome. They were, for obvious reasons, forever colored by the fact that Trump cheated. He defied the basic ground rules of free and fair elections. Now, fast forward to Act 2, the first impeachment of Donald Trump. We had to go through that one because it had become clear that Trump was trying to cheat again in the next election. He was caught red-handed attempting to essentially rerun his successful play of 2016, this time by using his power as a head of state to withhold foreign aid from Ukraine in exchange for acts that would, once again, essentially tilt the playing field against his opponent, likely opponent, Joe Biden. Now, the argument Republicans made at that time was, well, it's only 9 months until the election. If you don't like Donald Trump, don't impeach him, then vote him out then.
I would say, let the voters decide.
I mean, let the voters decide this stuff.
The voters are voting, and it is up to the voters to decide.
It's better to let the people decide. The answer is an election, not an impeachment.
Ah, yes, an election, the voters. We love the voters. Let the voters decide. We should take our cues from the voters. What do the voters want? Now, Democrats like Adam Schiff, lead impeachment manager last time around, argued that wouldn't work. Precisely because we can't trust it will be a free and fair election with this man in office.
He's guilty as sin, but why not let the voters clean up this mess? And here, to answer that question, we must look at the history of this presidency and to the character of this president, or lack of character, and ask, can we be confident that he will not continue to try to cheat in that very election? Can we be confident that Americans and not foreign powers will get to decide, and that the president will shun any further foreign interference in our democratic affairs? And the short, plain, sad, incontestable answer is no, you can't. You can't trust this president to do the right thing, not for 1 minute, not for one election, not for the sake of our country. You just can't. He will not change, and you know it.
And then we know what happened next. We did get that election. The Republicans acquitted Donald Trump. Voters, though, took the Republicans' advice. They voted Donald Trump out, fair and square. Joe Biden beat Donald Trump with a sizable electoral college majority and a big margin, 7 million votes, 3.5 percentage points. And so then what does Trump do? He refuses to accept the results. He seditiously plots to overturn them. He pursues every possible avenue in attempting to overturn the will of the people, culminating in a deadly attack on the Capitol designed to violently stop the transfer of power. At which point it was clear to Democrats that another impeachment was unavoidable, because this was an unacceptable frontal assault on democracy. And what do Republicans say then? Well, it's too late now. His term's almost over. Last year it was, don't impeach him. There's an election coming. Let the voters decide. Then the voters decided, and he tried to overturn the voters, along with the help of men like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley. And it became, well, don't impeach. We just had an election. Now it's just, well, he's already gone. I mean, it's too late now. We can't do anything. In all three cases, the issue has always been the same. Fundamentally, this man does not believe in democracy, and increasingly the party that follows him does not either. Trump is opposed to them. He takes actions in opposition to them. He is a walking, talking, no longer tweeting existential threat to the republic. Hiding behind process arguments is pure cowardice and abdication of duty. If Republicans want to defend the president's conduct, then by all means try to defend it, but they won't, and they largely can't, because it's indefensible. And it has been all along.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.